Alright guys, well I'm back today with an update video on the Axis 500 that I purchased from Lowe's about 2 years ago. We were looking something to get around on the land, to navigate the range, go back through some trails, and kind of use as a workhorse. We wanted something with a dump bed, a windshield, and a winch standard, and the Axis 500 had all of those. It's actually a Hisun 500 underneath, but it's rebranded for Lowe's as the Axis 500 or the Axis 700 depending on the configuration. The Axis 500 sells for right at about $8,000 or $9,000 depending on where you purchase it, but when I bought it, it was selling for right around $7,200 after some discounts I got. Now since then, prices have went up, like I said, closer to about $9,000, but in my opinion, it's still a high value. This is kind of an update video after 2 years of using this, and if you watch some of the previous videos where we put this through snow and ice and even drove it through a creek, it's been holding up great. Now there are some issues that I want to discuss, but none of them are major. Let's just talk about the rundown of the specs and features and how it's been performing over those 2 years. So one of the first things I want to mention, it is 4-wheel drive, and it's 4-wheel selectable inside the cabin, and we'll look at those controls in a second. But the 4-wheel drive has been holding up great, and I've never got this stuck. In 2 years, we've driven through creek beds, snow and ice, up really steep inclines, and the Axis 500 has never been stuck, and that's thanks in part to its 4-wheel drive. It works out great. Now honestly, with the knobby tires that this Axis 500 comes with, I haven't had to use the 4-wheel drive much, but I have had to use it in the snow and ice and when I'm going through those creek beds and mud, and it does work, no issues. The dump bed has been holding up great. It's still got a lot of spring tension in there to dump what you need. Nothing is broken on it, and we really use this dump bed to either, haul pretty much everything you can possibly think of, and it's been working out great. So the roof and cabin have been doing well. Also that windshield, no issues with the windshield. Everything's been holding up solid, so I don't have any complaints there. The finish has also been holding up, although the paint gets just a little bit faded with being out in the sun occasionally, but again, not that big of a deal. Moving along to the seats, they were kind of cheap feeling when I first got it. They still are that cheap feeling, but they haven't had any issues, and they're incredibly comfortable. The other thing I was a little bit concerned with was inside the cabin. This is very flimsy. It's just a cover right over that engine, and you feel a lot of heat coming from this in the summertime, but only if you're running it for 30 minutes to an hour. If you're just kind of scooting from place to place, it's not that big of a deal. And even though this was cheap and flimsy, nothing is broke on it. It's actually remaining pretty solid. Now, there are a few different things I want to discuss inside the cabin. The gear selector has been working out really good. The parking brake, the winch control, nothing's went wrong with that. Some of the cheaper things like these compartments have still been holding up, even though they're cheap plastic. Nothing is broke there. Now, something that did break was actually these door straps right here, and I talked about in that winter video. So last winter, about a year in, every single rubber door strap has broken on here, and it's not that big of a deal, but it is those tensioners that kind of pulled the doors shut. Again, not that big of a deal, and I'm sure these are going to break soon as well, but they haven't yet because there's not a ton of tension and they're not constantly stretched back and forth. Now, all of these are replaceable, and honestly, you could probably find something off the shelf or rig up something else to attach to those. Those rubber door straps did break, but that's the only thing that's actually broken on the system. Let's hop into the cabin and talk a little bit more about that. And you can see it's fairly comfortable. Now, I'm 5'8", and I am rather close to the steering wheel, and the seats aren't very adjustable. So if you are 6'4", 6'5", this may be a little bit cramped, and you might have to select a different model. When you're turning everything on, the display is very easy to understand. Nothing has gone wrong electronically, and this thing fires up every time you crank the key, and I've actually been letting it sit now, and it just fires right up. No issues whatsoever. Now, that 500cc power is leaves a little bit to be desired. Maybe a 700cc would have been just a touch better, but honestly, I haven't had anything this can't do. I've pulled mini trailers, I've loaded the bed up with a ton of stuff, I've loaded this down with people, and it's gotten everywhere I need to go. Again, no issues whatsoever, and it picks up pretty good speed on the road. Is this going to be like a trail master that you take out for adventures, just tearing up the trails all day like at warp speeds? No, this is definitely a workhorse, something that you're going to be able to use on your ranch or on your land to navigate around and get around and not get stuck. So that's what this is for, and it's served its purposes perfectly. A lot of these parts are easily interchangeable if you find something else that you want to swap around. The headlights work pretty decent at night. The bumper is good at pushing out brush, and the winch works great, although I've never actually had to use it for a necessity. I've used it just to try out, but it's never been a necessity to get me unstuck. The mirrors are pretty good. They've been holding up. They're a little bit cheap, but you know, guys, this thing has been working for 2 solid years now, and it is just a gas sipper. That's the other reason we wanted to navigate around the land, go back and forth, and not burn through a ton of gas, especially when it was creeping up to like $4 a gallon, and it's creeping back up again. So just using this all day can really save yourself a ton of gas money, because again, it just sips on the gas rather than gulping it down like my F-250. So a good option if you were looking for a high value ATV. I've seen these pop up on Facebook Marketplace where somebody bought one at Lowe's, decided, well, it's just not for me, and then they finally sell it after only like a few engine hours. You could save yourself a ton of money that way. So I hope you guys like the video. Hope it gives you a little bit more information about the Axis 500 that's offered at Lowe's. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.